Hi, welcome to What the Flick. My name is Christy Lemire. That is Alonzo Duraldi. We're going to talk about Kevin Hart, what now, question mark. A concert film with a lot of punctuation and a big preface, like a big 15-minute long prelude.
Right. Well, if you recall from his last one, Let Me Explain, there was he gets Tim Story to shoot these like bookending materials, and then I think Lonnie Small is the other director who does the live footage. So yeah, this time the bookending footage is this elaborate 007 parody that involves Halle Berry and Don Cheadle and Ed Helms, but the show itself is nothing to sneeze at either. Hart was the first comedian to sell out a football stadium, so he's performing in front of 50,000 people at Philadelphia's Lincoln Financial Field, and well, you know, it's a comedy concert film, and if you think he's funny, you'll want to see it, and if you don't, you probably won't. Take a look.
How did this idiot get in here, you say?
Говорите по-русски.
No, but I do read subtitles.
Why do you have subtitles?
I have subtitles because you have subtitles.
This is ridiculous.
What's ridiculous is when I put the black bouncing ball on mine and make it that much better than you.
It's Kevin Hart being Kevin Hart.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to even review these because it's sort of like you're either on board for this guy's humor or you aren't. You know, I like his stand-up. I think he's funny. Like you know, I run hot and cold with his actual acting, but you know, the stand-up stuff is good. He's reached that point that they make fun of in Funny People, which is that now he's making jokes about like his giant house and his children's private school education, you know, but while still trying to be sort of that man of the people comedian, you know, and relatable. But I think he is. I think he still manages to play to the cheap seats. And, you know, a lot of the stuff that he talks about is very universal, just his fear of being eaten by a wild animal, you know, which becomes more of a recurring theme than you would imagine over the course of the evening.
Yeah, I would say he strings together these wild anecdotes, and I'm guessing that there's some nugget of truth to them, and he just like blows them up to fantastical extremes. But then he very slyly and very seamlessly comes back to little bits as like through lines.
Yes.
And I was impressed by that because he is so manic and he seems like he's all impulse and all instinct, but it's clear how much craft goes into making all the pieces kind of work together.
Yeah.
Right? You know, and at a time when, you know, a lot of humor is political or it's racial or it's just flat out dirty. Like he's a storyteller and that's different.
He's a storyteller, but I think he also has a very canny sense of reaching the largest audience possible. You know, the fact that he's performing in front of 50,000 people says something about the kind of comedian he is, obviously, because if he were too political or too gross or whatever, like that would limit his audience, and he's very much about, you know, cutting a wide swath, and he even talks at the end about how the audience is so mixed. Like there's black people, there's white people, there's Hispanics and Asians, and you know, there's a shot of a woman in a headscarf. You know, like they really, you know, the editors really make it a point to sort of show how varietal the audience is. Yeah, and I think that, you know, you could say, oh, well, then he's pandering. But I think he's kind of found this sweet spot that works for him. And for the most part, I mean, you know, we sat together. I laughed a lot.
We laughed. Yeah.
There's some parts that don't fly as well as others, but that's in just about any comedy show that lasts that long. That's going to be the deal. And some of the callbacks I found a little tiring, but it was sort of like, well, you know, you've got to keep 50,000 people engaged.
Right.
You can be a little shaky, I guess.
The skeptical black girlfriend.
Yeah, that he does a few too many times.
And also, too many times, you mentioned the cutaways to the people reacting. Like, there's way too much of that. Like, yes, his audience finds him hysterical. Clearly, we don't need like repeated people doing the lines along with him.
Right.
And I know that it's meant to create a sense of warmth and energy and enthusiasm, but I'm like, all right, we get it. All right, enough already.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance. There was a Bill Cosby comedy movie years ago where they never cut to the audience, and it was kind of weird, you know. So like
isolating.
You have to kind of figure out the balance. And then there's the Tim Story stuff, which I remember the one in Let Me Explain really seemed pointless. This one, they're having more fun with it, and Halle Berry should do more comedy. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Her stuff with Kevin Hart, they have a really fun interplay. She's got a really good sort of shutting it down deadpan. Of course, I liked movie 43, so what do I know? But you know, she was funny in that too. She was funny in that too. But
and Don Cheadle's funny in this too.
Yes,
he does a lot of dramas, and he's really funny in this too. They're playing versions of themselves. You know, I laughed here and there at that. I felt it really superfluous. And what I would have liked with that time, because he makes such a big deal out of the fact that this is an unprecedented show he's putting on. I wouldn't have minded some actual behind the scenes stuff as to how he put this together and what is that like to play in front of an entire football stadium full of people. And instead we get like this bullshit manufactured James Bond parody, which is amusing here and there, but I don't know that that is like the best use of those 15 minutes prior to the actual concert.
You're right. And a lot of these concert films, and even Let Me Explain to some extent, has too much of that sort of behind the scenes stuff and like the fans gathering being like, woo, we love you, you know. But you're right. This is a movie because it's such a unique circumstance.
It's a record.
A record, yeah.
Yes.
A little bit of an explanation there might have helped. I also think that the spy stuff, it's fun at the beginning, but then when they call it back at the end, it's sort of pointless and it undercuts the ending of that show. The taking a bow in front of 50,000 people, like that's your ending. You don't need to then bring back Halle Berry and the car chase and the whatever else crap. You know, like just they could have stopped at when the show ends. When he takes his bow, leave the theater.
Yeah, and the emotion of that moment feels really genuine compared to how antic he is and how high energy he is when he takes a moment to say, like, as you mentioned, look around this crowd. It's everybody, and you know, life is laughter and laughter is love, or whatever he says, and that feels like a genuine outpouring of expression from him, which is rare compared to the persona he puts on. So yeah, that would have been a nice moment to end on. Yeah. I agree with you there.
But nonetheless, if you're a fan of his stand-up, this is good stand-up, and it's shot well, I think, for the most part, and performed well, and you know, you should check it out.
Yeah. So what's your number then?
I gave it a 7.
Okay, I'm gonna say 6. So we're right in the middle, 6.5.
Yeah.
Is it? Wait, Holmes. I'm sorry. Wait.
Yeah, that's a 6.5.
Oh yeah. So is it 87%? On the tomato meter.
Okay.
So I guess it's probably playing. Is it playing wide?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes. Because he's Kevin Hart. Everyone loves him. All right. Have fun. See ya. Bye.